You lost something. Maybe recently, maybe years ago, and it still defines the way you see everything that came after. Maybe it was not one thing. Maybe it was everything at once. The relationship, the career, the version of yourself that you had spent years building into something you were finally proud of. Maybe it was the money, the house, the stability you worked so hard for that you did not notice it had become your identity until it was gone. And in the hours and days after it happened, when the reality of what you had lost was still settling into your body like something physical, you felt something that nobody around you understood. Something that scared you because it did not feel like what you expected grief to feel like. It felt like space. Not good space, not peaceful space. A terrifying, disorienting, completely unstructured space where everything that used to fill it had just been removed. Where the weight you had been carrying was suddenly gone. And the absence of the weight felt almost worse than the weight itself. Because at least the weight was familiar. At least the weight told you who you were. At least the weight gave the day a shape. This video is about what that space actually contains. About what was always living inside it. About why the man who has lost everything is standing at the beginning of the only life that was ever fully his. And about why the loss, as devastating as it was the most important thing that ever happened to him. Stay with me. What I am about to show you will permanently change the way you see everything you lost. I need to spend the first section of this video on something that most people skip over when they talk about starting over. The honest acknowledgement of how completely it broke you. Because most content about rebuilding after loss goes straight to the inspiration. The stories of men who lost everything and built empires. The framework for getting back up. The roadmap to a better version of what was lost. As if the breaking itself was just a brief inconvenience on the way to the comeback. I am not going to do that. Because you deserve the acknowledgement first. Before the truth. Before the framework. Before any of it. Losing what you lost broke something in you. Not permanently, but really. In the way that real loss always does. It broke the story you had been telling about your life. The one where the thing you lost was a permanent feature. A load-bearing wall. Something so central to the structure of your daily existence that when it was removed, the structure did not just shift. It collapsed. And you have been sitting in the rubble, trying to figure out what is salvageable, what to do next, who you are without the thing that was gone. That process is not weakness. That process is not self-pity. That process is the most honest thing a man can do after a genuine loss. Sit with it. Feel it completely. Let it be as heavy as it actually is, before you do anything else. Because the man who skips this part, who goes straight to the rebuilding before the grieving is done, builds the new life on a foundation that has not been cleared. And the things he did not grieve will come up through the floor of everything he builds next. Feel it first, all of it. Then we can talk about what comes after. Here is the first thing that losing everything does that nobody tells you. It removes the performance. Before the loss, most men carry a version of themselves that is at least partially constructed around what they have. The job gives them an identity. The relationship gives them a role. The house gives them a status. The things they have built give them a story to tell about who they are, that is real, but not complete. Because the real version, the complete version, the version that exists underneath all of the having, does not require any of it. But you cannot access that version while you are holding everything, because the holding occupies the hands, and the eyes, and the attention, and the identity, until there is nothing left to hold. And then, for the first time in years, sometimes for the first time in a life, you meet yourself. Without the job title, without the relationship, without the things that were supposed to tell you who you were, without the performance that was built around the having. Just you, raw and unmediated, and more honest than you have been since before any of it began. And that meeting, as terrifying as it is the most important meeting of your life. Because the man you meet in that space, the one with nothing to maintain and nothing to perform, is the one who was always actually there, waiting, underneath everything you had been holding. Marcus Aurelius lost more than most men are ever asked to lose: children, friends, health. He watched people he loved deeply leave before he was ready. He carried losses that never fully resolved, and he wrote about them, not publicly, in the private journals that were never meant to be read, with complete honesty about what the losses had done to him, about the specific weight of carrying grief in public while being required to lead, about the way that loss had changed the shape of his interior world, about what he found on the other side of losing things he had believed were permanent. He found something he described as essential, the things that remained when everything removable had been removed. His values, his character, his relationship with his own mind, his ability to choose his response to circumstances he could not control. These things could not be lost, because they had never been given to him by the having. They had been built in him, by the living, by the choosing, by the deciding repeatedly who he was going to be, regardless of what the circumstances provided or removed. And the losses, as real and as painful as they were, revealed what was always there, what nobody and nothing could take. And that revelation, that discovery of the indestructible core beneath the destructible exterior, changed everything about how he understood what he actually was. He was not the things he had. He was the man who remained when the things were gone. And so are you. Here is the specific freedom that comes with losing everything that nobody who has not experienced it can fully understand. You have nothing left to protect. Most men spend enormous amounts of energy protecting what they have, the reputation they have built, the relationships they depend on, the financial position they have worked for, the image they have constructed for the world around them. All of that protection requires constant energy, constant management, constant calculation of risk. What to say, what not to say, what to do, what to avoid, how to present, how to maintain, how to hold on to the things that are always slightly at risk of being lost. That energy is so constant and so familiar that most men do not notice it. The way you do not notice the sound of traffic when you live near a road, until it stops, and the silence of its absence is almost more jarring than the noise itself. When you lose everything, the energy of protection stops, because there is nothing left to protect. And in that stopping, a specific kind of clarity arrives about what you actually want, not what you were maintaining, not what you were performing, not what you built because it was expected or because it looked right or because it was the next logical step in a story someone else wrote for you. What you actually want. When there is nothing to lose, when the answer does not have to be consistent with what you were holding, when you are free, for the first time in years, to choose a direction based entirely on what is true, rather than what is safe. That freedom is terrifying, and it is the most important freedom you will ever experience. Here is what rebuilding looks like for the man who has lost everything,
And I want to be completely honest about this, because most descriptions of rebuilding make it sound like a return, like you are rebuilding what was lost, getting back to where you were, recovering the life that was taken. But that is not what rebuilding after total loss actually is. What it actually is construction, not reconstruction. Construction. Building something that did not exist before the loss. Something that could only be built by the man who emerged from the loss, not the man who went into it. Because the man who went into it was building from the outside in, from the having toward the being, hoping that if he accumulated enough of the right things, he would eventually feel like the right version of himself.
But the man who comes out of losing everything builds from the inside out, from the being toward the having, from the clarity of knowing who he actually is when he has nothing, toward the deliberate construction of a life that is consistent with that knowledge. And that life, built from the inside out, by a man who has met himself without anything to hide behind, is the only version of a life that never needs to be performed, because it was never built for the performance. It was built for the man, the real one, the one who is always there, waiting for the loss to reveal him. I want to close with something I need you to carry out of this video. The thing you lost, whatever it was, however devastating the losing was, did not take the most important thing. It could not. Because the most important thing was never in the things. It was never in the job or the relationship or the money or the status or the version of yourself that the having made possible. It was in you. It has always been in you. The capacity to build. The character that chose to keep going. The values that did not change when everything that was built on them collapsed. The man who remained when the remains were all that was left. That man is not starting over. He is starting, for the first time, from the only foundation that was ever real, himself. Everything you build from here will be built on something that cannot collapse, because it survived the collapse, and survived it intact, which means it was never the things that made you. It was always you. You just needed to lose the things to finally see that clearly. Build now, from here, from this, from the man who remained. He is more than enough to build from. He always was. If this found you at exactly the right moment, subscribe. We build here every single week. Drop a comment. Have you ever lost everything and had to start from zero? Drop yes if this is your story. And know that the man who starts from zero is the only man who gets to choose what everything means. See you in the next one.